We are going to jump into our rhythm series. If you remember last week, we talked about the fact that we are created in a rhythmic world, a world that has all of these rhythms to it, and we are then created as rhythmic people. And by tapping into some of those rhythms, by going back and practicing spiritual formations, we can grow in our relationship with Jesus, right? We can understand who we are a little clearer if we kind of tap into some of those formations and disciplines that bring us back to be in rhythm, right? And so today we're going to talk about this idea of silence and solitude, right? The first spiritual formation we're going to talk about is silence and solitude. And the first question I have for you guys is this. How many of you guys like silence? Some of you? Boo. Our band is booing in the back. How many of you guys felt a little awkward when I stopped talking it was like 20 seconds. Abby, thank you for raising your hand so fast. It was a little weird, right? Silence, the idea of silence and solitude. When I say those things, some of you probably in this room go, I don't like the sound of that, right? And here's why I think this is true. We have become so accustomed to noise and to people in the world we live in, right? So you guys are constantly surrounded by all of this noise. I've been to middle school cafeterias, right? Are they quiet? No, they're so loud. There's all this noise. You guys go to school and you're surrounded by people and there's all this noise. And when there's not noise, when it's quiet, what do you guys like to do? You like to combat it with noise. So you pop in a headphone, right? Your headphones, you play some music, right? Even if you're having a conversation with somebody, you're going to put in some other noise to listen to, right? Or, man, some of you, when you lay down to sleep, you have to listen to music, or you put on a white noise machine, right? Or you play video games at your house, but you also then turn on music, and you just create so much noise. And here's what's true. We are noisy people, right? My kids, if you come over to my house, it is loud. Because my kids, even though we're dudes, you guys are inside, be quiet, they just ramp it up and get so loud. And it's only two of them, right? We kind of like noise, and we get accustomed to it. My roommate and I in college, our freshman year, we lived in a dorm room that was 10 by 10. It's a really small room, and it was all cinder blocks, which was super fun. Kind of felt like prison. We had one window in our room, and we took curtains, and we put 3 or 4 curtains in front of it to make it as dark as possible. And then we took tape, and we put it over every light. So you know how you have little power strips, and they have a little bitty light on them? We put tape over that. And then we put a towel under our door in the front. So literally, it was pitch black in our room. And then we took these 2 big old box fans and turned them on. And they were so loud. When you walked in for the first time, it was a lot of noise. But we would lay down and just kind of grow accustomed to the loud noise. And then no other noises could wake us up, right? Loud noise kind of just became this drowning white noise that we just slept to, right? We get accustomed to noise, and we like noise. Have you guys ever been watching TV, and whatever show you're watching or sport you're watching, a commercial comes on, and the commercial feels and sounds so much louder? Yeah? Do you know that's actually true? Commercials do that. They turn the decibels up just a little bit because they know that physiologically our brains get accustomed to a certain type of noise at a certain level of sound. And so they turn it up so it draws your attention back in and you listen, right? So we've become accustomed to all these noises. And I think in the world today, we are just accustomed and used to a lot of noise around us. Noise from people, noise from phones, noise from technology, all of this noise. And then we're just really used to people, right? You guys are surrounded by people a lot. You go to school and you're surrounded by people. You come to church and you're surrounded by people. You go to Costco on the weekend and it's wild, right? You're surrounded by people. We live in the Dallas Metroplex and there are millions of people who live in this tiny area. We're surrounded by people and we're surrounded by noise. And the truth is we just kind of grow used to that and it's just the norm in our lives. And so when I tell you that silence and solitude can be one of the most formative things in your faith, man, in growing with who Jesus has said you are, with understanding your identity in him. When I tell you silence and solitude can be transformative, most of us in the room go, yeah, but I don't think I could do that, right? Or we have like excuses come up and we go, I don't want to do that because like then I'll miss out on something, right? Then this happens. And so it's hard to go, yes, I want to do that. And so what I want to do is talk just for a few minutes about what it even is. When I say silence and solitude, what does that mean? But then also give you 3 reasons for why we should do it, all right? And so silence. When I say the word silence, what does that actually mean? Is silence sitting in this room and none of us talking? Right? Is that what that means, or is it more? Right? So silence is actually about internal and external silence. So external silence, when we get in and we're practicing silence, man, we want to quiet the external noise of our life. Right? External noise is like the TV, right? Your phone, if you have one. Music, it's turning off inputs so there's not noise around us. Right? That's pretty easy to do. Most of the time, it's just turning off all the switches and sitting in a place where it's quiet. You know what's crazy? There's these rooms called anechoic chambers. It's a really hard word to say. They're the quietest rooms in the world. In them, there's like all this padding and stuff, and they've made it to where it's so quiet you can go in and you can like hear your own heartbeat. You can start to hear like blood flowing through your veins. It's crazy. And what's wild is people go into these rooms and can only last for a few minutes because they're not used to that level of quiet, right? But it's removing all of these external things and quieting down, right? But it's also an internal quiet, right? Silence is internal, and that's like stopping the thoughts in your brain. Have you guys ever sat down to read a book, and you start reading this book, and then you're going, well, what about this thing I'm having for dinner? And then what about this later, and this, and this? And you go on this kind of rabbit trail, right? That's internal noise, right? It's just like rabbit trail of movement and going all these places. It's kind of this like scatterbrain shooting all over the places. And we so often do that. You guys specifically have been raised in a world where like, man, attention spans are made to be like seconds. And so sitting down and silencing external stuff can be easy, but internally, man, sitting and focusing on only one thing and being present in the moment can be really, really hard. But that's what silence is. It's about external mode, like external noise gone, but also internal noise. Focusing on only being present where you are and being present with God, right? So that's what silence is. And then solitude, right? You might hear solitude and go, man, solitude is just loneliness. It's not being with people. But that's not what it is at all, right? Solitude is this like chosen movement away from everyone and everything else for a moment in time. Right? Solitude is not choosing solitude for forever and saying, I don't want to be around people and I'm just going to move out in the country and be away and lonely and sad forever. That's not what solitude is. It's an intentional time to move away, be by yourself, so that the only motivator, the only voice you can hear is God's. So silence and solitude together are removing all internal and external noise so that the only voice you can hear is God, being present with Him only. Right? And that's a little bit harder, right? When you hear that, you go, that sounds hard to do, but why should we do it? Why should you want to practice silence and solitude? And there's 3 reasons. The first is this, and this one sounds a little bit like a trump card, but like Jesus did it, right? Jesus, in His life, He practiced silence and solitude. So we see in Matthew Jesus goes out to the wilderness in Matthew 4, right? The wilderness, that word is, let me read it so I don't say it terribly wrong. It can also be translated to solitary place, and it's the Greek word eremos, right? So Jesus went out to the wilderness, out to this solitary place, and he did it to pray, to be fully present with the Father. Right? Jesus, the Son of God, the God in flesh, when he came down to this earth, he made time to go out into the wilderness, into a solitary place, to be in silence and solitude before God. And what we see that's really cool is as Jesus' ministry grew, as he started to be surrounded by more and more people, he would go out into the wilderness more and more often. So as his life got busier, he prioritized going into silence and solitude for time, like seasons, moments at a time, so he could be with God and be fully present with him. Right? Jesus practiced silence and solitude. It was so impactful in his life. And so have you guys ever read like a biography about somebody? Anybody find like people fascinating and you want to read about them? Yeah, who would you guys read a biography about? The Wright brothers? Okay, cool. Who? Caleb. About Caleb? Sure. Yeah. I guess that's written. Who would you read a biography about? LeBron James? Awesome. Okay, let's stick with LeBron James because most of us know who LeBron James is, right? All right. No, you don't know? Well, he is the GOAT, so, you know. Harry Potter. Okay, so LeBron James, if you were to read a biography about LeBron James, part of your motivation for reading it is because you would go, LeBron James is a super successful basketball player. You could argue he's the greatest of all time, right? You could, all right? You would read that and go, I want to read and learn about his life, right? I want to learn about the things that LeBron James does. I want to learn about his practice routine, how he does, like, when does he wake up? How much does he practice? What does he do? So that you could probably model some of your life after him and maybe be as successful as him, right? You would go, I want to read about this guy so I can live and like kind of echo his life. And what's true about the Bible, right, the gospel specifically, is we read about Jesus' life, the things he did in his life, so that we can know who he is, we can understand his character, and we can start to live our lives to look a little bit more like his, right? Because if we know Jesus and he's living in us, then the outworking of that, the way our life should look, is our life should look a little bit more like Jesus' life, right? And so Jesus, he prioritized time alone with the Father in silence and solitude. And so that can then become a spiritual formation for us, right? So silence and solitude is important because Jesus did it. But it's also important because it's really the most impactful way to be emotionally healthy, all right? So what probably happens for you, right, is something happens in your life, right? You maybe bomb a test, or you don't make a team you wanted to be on, or, something happens between a friendship, right? Like a friend says something to you, right? Something happens that's maybe not exactly what you wanted to happen. And then from that, you start to feel emotions, right? So negative things can make us start to feel emotions. And what generally happens for most of us is we sit with those emotions. We don't know what to do with them. They swirl around a little bit. And so if it's your friend who said something mean to you, what you do is you sit with it. You don't know what to do. You stuff it down. And you go, what I'm going to do is be mean back to them. So we project the hurt that we're feeling onto someone else, right? Or if we do bad on a test, we go, I'm the worst. I'm a failure. I'm never going to do it again, right? I can't do school. I'm just the worst. Right? We sit in these emotions, we don't know how to process them, and so we either project them on someone else, we speak negative truths about ourselves, or we go to coping in some way. We go, it doesn't really matter, so I'm just going to go play video games forever, right? Or I don't feel good about this, so I'm just going to go and eat a bunch of food. That's generally what I would do in my life, right? Or something like that, right? This doesn't work, so I'm just going to spend my time focusing on sports and not school or whatever, right? And so we can also then do the opposite of that, where we do maybe pass a test, or we do make that team, or we do this, and we sit in those emotions and we go, I'm so high and mighty. I'm awesome, right? I don't know what to do with this like enjoyment, and so I'm going to be like, I'm the best, and then it causes us to look down on others, right? And so with our emotions, we can sometimes go towards lies and like move into all of the stuff that either causes us to look poorly on ourselves or causes us to look prideful on ourselves. But if we practice silence and solitude, right? If we have a constant time where we sit before God, it allows us to calm down all those other things, to move all the noise out of our lives and sit with our emotions, actually understand what we're feeling, and then bring those to God. Right? So if we fail a test, we sit there and we go, okay, I failed. God, I don't know how to process this. Help me to process what's going on. What we're going to then move to is hopefully truth. Right? Man, I am not a failure. Yes, I maybe did bad on a test, but I'm not a failure. Here's what God says about me. Or you have like a fight with a friend, right? And you sit before God with those emotions and you try and process them in silence and solitude. And what you see is your friend was probably hurting, which is why they maybe said some things to you. So instead of responding to them in a rude way, you respond to them in love, because that's what God would call you to. Right? And then even our successes, right? Man, when we do really great on a test, or we do something on the football field, or we do something that like we should be kind of like built up for, we bring it to God and we say, man, I'm so excited about this, God, but I know it's only because of you. And so silence and solitude allow us to sit in our emotions and process them in a healthy way, so that we don't then start to like look down on ourselves or build ourselves up, but we can live a healthy, emotionally regulated life, right? And so silence and solitude, man, we do it because Jesus did it. We do it because in our world today, it helps us to quiet the noise, to process our emotions. And then 3, we do it because it's a really great way to grow in our relationship with Jesus, right? The way that you guys grow in a friendship, the way that you guys grow and get to know somebody is you spend time with them, right? It's pretty simple, right? The people who are like your really good friends, you've spent the most time with. Man, you like stood shoulder to shoulder and you had shared experiences. You guys did stuff together. So maybe it's someone who's like on a team with you, right? You guys were on the team and you won a championship and you've spent a lot of time doing a lot of stuff together. The same is true of Jesus, man. If we want to know Jesus, if we want to understand his character and know who he is, it takes spending some time with him. Pausing in our life, silently going to Jesus, removing all the external noise and listening to the voice of God. And the truth is this, most of us in here would go, man, but I know that I believe that God died for me, that he sent his son to die for me, but I just don't feel close to God. I don't feel close to him. It's because, man, the voice of God is often a whisper in our lives. But we have so much noise going on, we can't actually hear him. And so it takes us practicing, taking that noise away and sitting in the presence of God. And so we practice silence and solitude because Jesus did it, because it emotionally can help us be healthy. And also, man, it's a way to grow in our faith. My guess is, though, as I'm talking about this, you guys are going, yeah, but that takes time. And Kevin, I don't have time, right? My life is busy. And I would push back on that, right? Because I say that all the time in my life. But is my life that busy? Do we have 5 minutes a day? Because the truth is this, you start where you are, not where you want to be, right? Do you have 5 minutes a day where you could wake up a couple minutes early? Where you could maybe not hit the snooze button on your alarm? Right, where instead of playing video games or watching that Netflix show or spending hours on YouTube or whatever it is you do, instead of that, what would it look like for you to just spend 5 minutes sitting in your room, man, maybe going outside because it's beautiful right now, sitting in your backyard, taking nothing with you and just sitting before God and practicing spending some time in silence and solitude. And so my encouragement to you guys is this, to make time this week. You're all busy. All of us are busy. But make some time to spend in silence and solitude before Jesus. And as you start to practice this formation, as you start to do this more, you can then add some other things. You can add maybe some scripture reading. You can add prayer. You can add listening to worship music. All those things, but this is kind of the baseline, a place to start as a spiritual formation with God, spending time in silence and solitude and seeing if you can hear God moving and giving you ideas and thoughts and working in your heart. And so what we're going to do, we're going to spend 5 minutes actually practicing this, all right? So you guys, once I pray, you will find a space upstairs, right? Anywhere upstairs, go find a space. You're going to sit. It's going to be a little weird. The solitude part is going to not happen because we're all together. But we're going to practice just for 5 minutes sitting in silence before God, removing internal and external distractions and spending time with him, listening to what God might be saying to you. So you can spend time in prayer or just spend time meditating and sitting there with God, right? And so here's what I want to do. I really want to challenge you guys. As you guys move, don't go sit by your friend, all right? Don't go sit by that friend who you know you guys are going to make eye contact with and you're just going to giggle the whole time, right? Don't sit by that friend who you know is going to like try and get your attention and distract you the whole time. Go find a space where as much as you can be alone with God. And for 5 minutes, we're going to sit in silence and kind of in solitude before God, all right? And then I will announce it. You guys will go to small groups, okay? So let me pray. Jesus, thank you for today. Thank you for your life that you model for us through Scripture, God, that we get to read the story of you, and we can then take some of those things on to understand your identity and who you are a little bit more and who we are in you. And so, God, I pray for this moment we're all about to go have, God. These 5 minutes where we sit in silence, God, I pray that for these students in the room, God, they would experience you in a different way. God, maybe they could actually remove distractions and they could just sit in your presence and feel you being a balm over their life and their heart, and they could bring their emotions and what they're processing to you, God, and just be present in the moment. And so I pray for this time. I pray that it would be impactful. And then I also pray for our small group time afterwards, God, that you would move through our leaders, speak through them as they lead these groups. We love you, Jesus. In your name we pray. Amen.